And let's go to our last story. This is my most recent article from The Last American Vagabond, which is called Another Study Finds Association Between Water Fluoridation and Brain Health. This is my author page on The Last American Vagabond, by the way, right here. And you can scroll down and see all my articles, including the article I mentioned about Bethany Christian Services. There'll be a new one coming out soon. So stay tuned for that later this week. But let's talk about this fluoride study. This was published in JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA Network Open Medical Journal, and it's called Maternal Urinary and Child Neurobehavior at Age 36 Months. You can see this right here. It's published just last week, May 2024. And this is, okay, we said, my reception died when you said, can you repeat the special of the show before? Oh yeah, if you want to check out the above phone, I'll pull up the ad in just a second, but it's like we have like a $50 off coupon, I think, and then like another 10% discount on the above phone. So just let me know, and I'll post that before we end the show. So this maternal urinary fluoride, looking at child neurobehavior, what they basically did is they take mom's pee and they study it at different intervals, and then they came back at the child when the children were 3 years old, and they looked at how, did some surveys with the mom and looked at some of their, they did some tests on neurobehavior and were able to see that there was a drop in other studies have talked about IQ, others have talked about ADHD. This one's kind of more broadly just talking about neurobehavior, but it says right away, here their goal was to examine associations of third trimester maternal urinary fluoride with child neurobehavior at age 3 years old. And the results, just get to the conclusion here. In this prospective cohort study of mother-child pairs in LA, California, prenatal fluoride exposure was associated with increased neurobehavioral problems. These findings suggest that they may need to establish recommendations for limiting fluoride exposure during a prenatal period. This means that pregnant moms should not be consuming fluoride. And I've been telling you guys this for a while now, even before the fluoride lawsuit. So this comes from a study that is called the Madres cohort, based in LA, mainly Hispanic women, 229 Hispanic pregnant women living in LA, California, who are exposed to fluoride. And the thing about this that's interesting is these women are being exposed to what they call the optimally level of fluoride. So these are children who are getting the quote unquote optimal levels of fluoride as deemed optimal by the CDC and the US government. So this means that the critics who say, oh, there's no proof fluoride is causing harm, because they'll say, well, that study looked at levels of fluoride that are way too high. Those don't even apply to what we're consuming. This study actually looked at 0.7 milligrams per liter, which is the optimal fluoridated level recommended by the CDC. And the researchers note this. They say the study sample resided in a predominantly fluoridated region and had fluoride exposures that are typical of those living in fluoridated communities in North America. This latest study used urine samples from 2017 to 2020 and neurobehavioral data gathered from 2020 to 2023 as part of the Madres cohort. And again, this focused on women at least 18 years old, Hispanic, in the LA area. And the researchers note, quote, it is widely established that exposure to high fluoride levels can adversely affect neurodevelopment. However, they say that the latest studies from Mexico and Canada indicate that fluoride exposure at lower levels, including those in the range recommended by the CDC, may also be associated with neurobehavioral issues. And here's the kind of key point that these researchers write. Specifically, higher prenatal fluoride exposure in Canada and or Mexico has been associated with lower IQ among children aged 3 to 4 years in Canada and children aged 6 to 12 in Mexico, increased symptoms of ADHD among children aged 6 to 12 years old, and poor executive function among children 3 to 5 years old, and poorer performance on measures of global cognition among 12 and 24-month-old boys. So as young as 1 year to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, and 6 to 12 years, all showing ADHD, various executive function issues, poor performance, lower IQ. And, it's pretty clear. And so the researchers say that even though there are some inconsistencies in the global body of scientific literature, they say, quote, the weight of the scientific literature supports an association of prenatal fluoride exposure with adverse child cognitive and neurobehavioral development in North America. They also mentioned the National Toxicology Program study, which if you've been following my work, you guys know this is the study that has been hidden by the U.S. government, specifically by Assistant Secretary of Health Rachel/Richard Levine. As I've been documenting for the last year, 2 years, we had emails come out to the fluoride lawsuit showing that the US government has been blocking the release of this study done by the scientists at the National Toxicology Program. And it is that study at the NTP that said, quote, with moderate confidence, higher fluoride exposure is consistently associated with lower IQ in children. So this study is like the latest of the studies, and the reason that it's seen as unique is because not only is it following the moms over a 3-year period of time, but it's the first one, and think about how crazy this is, the first study, US-based cohort to examine associations of prenatal fluoride exposure with child neurobehavior. Think about this. They've been putting this poison, this crap in the water, telling people it's good for their teeth for 70 years, and this is the first study allegedly ever to actually look at how it affects moms that are pregnant. I mean, that's insane. It's insane. It's just freaking insane that that's the point where we're at. Now, there's another point I want to make here. One of the people involved in this study was Dr. Howard Hu. He was also, of course, one of the expert witnesses that testified during the second phase of the fluoride lawsuit in February. And he's extensively studied fluoride's toxicity. His work also looked at lead toxicity and antisocial behavior. And he told Children's Health Defense after this was released, quote, when you add all this to all the other studies that have been done on the subject in the last few years, it creates a body of evidence that suggests that the impact of fluoride on neurobehavioral development problems is causal. It's not just an epidemiological association. And this is because people will say association, not causation. Like this is, this is what the pro-fluoride advocates, when I've been sharing this, saying, oh, this is just showing association. That's not proof. But come on, after you have dozens of studies showing an association, you can probably say there's a cause, the link going on here. But of course, the diehard, just like with the COVID shots, the diehard fluoride advocates are going to push it no matter what. And this is pretty similar to what Dr. Howard Hu, as you can see right here, this is him speaking to me after one of the first days of the fluoride lawsuit in San Francisco. He said, quote, this is what he told me back then. I would say that in my view, the evidence is quite persuasive that there's a negative impact of fluoride exposure on the neurodevelopment of children, particularly the research that's been coming out in prenatal exposure. And this is exactly what we're seeing. Prenatal exposure linked to lower cognitive function, lower IQ, poor performances in cognitive tests, and you could go on and you could go on, right? And I kind of recap some of Dr. Hu's summary, his testimony. You guys might remember he was the one that was talking about the fact that during pregnancy, if a mom is drinking fluoridated water, and of course we all know that everything that the child has inside of the mother comes from the mother. So if the mom's drinking fluoridated water, it's going to go into her bones. As we know, fluoride it stores in the bones. This is how you can get skeletal fluorosis, and it displaces the calcium. And well, when a baby is trying to form its skeletal structure, it pulls everything it has from the mom. So usually it's going to pull calcium out of the bones, and it will still do that. But if the bones are filled with fluoride, guess what? The baby's going to get through its placenta directly past the blood-brain barrier into its body, its being as it's forming. It's going to get freaking fluoride right into itself. So we need to get the message out to more mothers, pregnant mothers, planning to be pregnant mothers, to not be consuming fluoride. Don't be consuming fluoride at all, but at the very least, like, get them to err on the side of caution and to say, look, you're pregnant, you want to protect your baby, right? Well, here's some new data. You don't got to trust Derrick Broze. You don't got to trust the Last American Vagabond. Here's the freaking peer-reviewed study, JAMA, maternal urinary fluoride child neurobehavior at age 36 months. Look at the conclusions. You can download the PDF. This one is not behind a paywall. Get this to your friends and family. Like, I know that this is probably not familiar to people who are going to see this show or watch this clip later, but as I've been trying to remind you guys recently, this is not just about those of us who are wide awake. This is about the people who might not get the picture yet. Think about the people in your, like, if you have friends and family in your life who you care about and you just wish they would listen to you, but they won't listen to you because you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist. Wouldn't you want to use something like this study, as like ammo, as a tool to say, look, you don't got to trust me, but here's 7 doctors from these various universities, and they got, diplomas on their wall and letters next to their name. They're important, credentialed, expert people. Trust them, don't trust me. And look, they're saying this leads to lower cognitive function. And they even say in that study that 0.68 milligrams per liter of fluoride, according to them, was likely to lead into a doubling effect of the loss of cognitive function. So, I mean, you don't have to drink a lot of fluoride for there to start being measurable impacts to your child's health, to your health. So please, if you care about that, and if you care about this fluoride story, get that story in front of more people, more parents. And again, you can find this article here on my author page at The Last American Vagabond. And you can also go to theconsciousresistance.com/water-fluoridation, and it'll take you straight here to this page of everything I've done over the years, including the Dr. Howard Hu interview and a lot more of my reports. You can go through there and just kind of dig in there and get all caught up. There's a lot going on that we've done. And I've been covering fluoride. This is one of the first topics I woke up to back in 2011. So there's a lot to catch people up. The evidence is there for people who are willing to actually look at it. For those who won't, hopefully that fluoride doesn't damage them too much. But again, I encourage you to use stories like this as a tool to reach the people in your life and people that you care about.
Hey friends, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. The clip you just watched is from my recently relaunched podcast, The Conscious Resistance Live. Now, I'm going to continue to release free clips every single week for those of you who follow me on social media platforms. But if you want to see the entire show, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, you're going to want to sign up to be a monthly supporter via Buy Me a Coffee or Substack. And every show I'm going to be sharing about 3 or 4 hard-hitting news stories that you're not going to see covered in the mainstream or the alternative media. We're also going to be featuring exclusive interviews, and we also have a segment called What's Derrick Reading, where I highlight some of my books behind me and share about what I'm reading lately and just offer my perspective. Finally, every episode is going to end with a music video from a conscious musician. So if you're looking to get inspired, looking for some new music, you're definitely going to check this out. So you can sign up at derrickbroze.substack.com or buymeacoffee.com/derrickbroze to become a monthly supporter to make sure you see every episode of The Conscious Resistance Live on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really couldn't do this without you. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.